Coming back today, we have another fighter spotlight. We have newly signed MMA fighter Glory Watson with us today. Glory went 6-1 as an amateur fighter. Now she is going to be making the jumps to the pro ranks. She'll be fighting March 27th in her pro debut for Triton Fights down in Tampa, Florida. Glory, thanks for joining us today. How are you feeling?
Doing well. Just getting into camp. We're 2 weeks in, so starting to adjust back to being in camp after a year and a half.
Sure, yeah, and that is probably a big adjustment. What are the biggest changes that you make from, training regularly, just day in, day out at the gym to now, I'm in camp, these are the things that I need to do, what I need to focus on?
A lot of that has to do with my coach. He does a lot of the changing of exactly what we're doing, the intensity of our sparring, the type of drilling that we're doing, when we're doing our strength and conditioning and all that. So a lot of it's up to him.
And in terms of that sparring, that strength and conditioning, what do your sessions look like? Are you doing 2-a-days right now? Or are you doing, 2 days on, 1 day off? What does your thing look like?
I have been 2-a-days pretty much forever. When I first started, I maybe did 2 months where I only did one session, and now I do 2, sometimes 3 sessions, 5, 6 days a week usually.
And when you're saying sessions, are you saying that could be strength and conditioning, it could be mobility, it could be jujitsu, whatever that may be?
Yes. Usually it's if we do striking in the morning, we'll do strength and conditioning, possibly jujitsu in the evening to make sure that we keep a good balance with everything.
Okay. And in terms of the strength and conditioning that you are doing right now, is it plyometrics? Is it CrossFit? Is it powerlifting? How does your coach have you, building that strength and conditioning?
Right now, where we're so early in camp, it's still more powerlifting type things, all Olympic lifts, deadlifts, things like that, just to build strength until we have to start upping my cardio a little more.
Sure, and that makes sense. And then also, for a lot of fighters, it comes to the point where that heavy lifting doesn't really help with cutting weight. So with you
Right.
making this pro debut, do you have a substantial weight cut in front of you? Do you walk around close to your fight weight? How does that feel?
I actually am the lightest I have ever been cutting to 115. I have fought in, I think, 4 or 5 different weight classes. My first fight was at 130, then I went 135. I was at 125 for 2 or 3 fights, and then 115 for 2 fights. So this is the lightest I've ever been. Right now I'm 2 weeks out, and or I'm 2 weeks into camp, excuse me, and I'm only 13 pounds out.
That's awesome. So that's like a big weight off your shoulders, right? It's not something that you're thinking about all day long, which is your weight.
Yeah, but I'm a panicker. So as soon as camp starts, I'm like, I got to make sure I make weight. This is the biggest thing for me is making weight, because I can go in and I can train and do all those things and do what coach tells me, but making weight is the scariest part for me because that's something I do entirely on my own.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I always used to tell people, they'd be like, well, aren't you nervous about fighting? And I'd be like, no, the worst part of a fight, right, is making weight. Once you make the weight, then it's fun.
Exactly. And then you can start to sit there and eat all day.
Yeah, all the things that you've been thinking about since your weight cut started. So I wanted to talk to you also a little bit about just how you got into mixed martial arts in the first place, right? You're talking about how pretty much since 2 or 3 months into training, you've been going 2-a-days around the clock. How did you find yourself wanting to join a mixed martial arts gym? Where does that motivation come from to stay that strict with your training around the clock?
I have always been very team oriented. I played sports for as long as I can remember, like ORC Little League type of thing, that just different rec leagues, and then playing in school. So after high school, I got into more bodybuilding, which I had a team that I would lift with. And after that, I ended up in a relationship with a guy that, everyone says you get in a relationship and you put on all that weight and you just don't want to go to the gym anymore. And that's kind of where I fell into. And eventually I wanted the drive to, I had the drive to compete again. So I reached out to one of the girls that was at the gym who I've known for years and years on end and was like, "Are you still sparring over at Young's MMA?" She's like, "Yep." I'm like, "Can I come?" And she was like, "Yeah, come over on Friday." And I went over on Friday and I never really left.
And when you when you first got into it, going from the bodybuilding side of working out to then training MMA, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, all of those things, what were some of the similarities that you found between training for one and the other, and then what was the biggest like, oh crap moment that you had that's a big difference between the two?
Similarities would probably be body awareness. That is such a huge thing that people really underestimate in both worlds, in bodybuilding and in MMA. Having the awareness to know where your limbs are and what you're doing with your feet and how your toes are flexed and all these random tiny things that change. They change how your kicks are thrown, how your punches are thrown, how you lift different weights, how just tiny adjustments to everything. And biggest thing that I guess I wasn't really prepared for was the cardio.
Mhm.
Because bodybuilding, I was like, I hate cardio. I hate it. I'm not doing it. But now that's all that it is. Even when you're like, it's going to be an easy day, it's cardio.
Yeah, it is, and it's really I always go back to this. It's the only thing that you can truly control once the fight starts, is making sure that
Mm-hmm.
you won't gas out, right? So it's the only thing that you should every single day make sure that your cardio is on point.
Yeah. And it's the worst because cardio is the worst.
It is. It's one of my favorite things to see is somebody that comes in and they might be like a bodybuilder or power lifter, and then they are 220 pounds and they roll with one of our 135-pound purple belts and they gas in the first 10 seconds and don't
Oh,
really
it's the
understand
best.
why this small human being can control them, and they're like, oh, jiu-jitsu really works.
Yeah. No, it's always so funny because I get that a lot when I go with men.
Hmm.
Because people expect, oh, you're a little tiny female, and then going with some of our newer guys, it's completely different than they would expect.
And then does that give you in their eyes, do you feel they almost instantly respect you at that point when they're like, oh, this girl, she knows what she's doing, right? She's not messing around. This is not easy.
Um, maybe.
Hmm.
The thing is I'm not. I love everything that women do, but I have a very different type of respect for men and powerful women. That it does size does matter.
Hmm.
Even though I'm small, if the rules didn't exist, a 220-pound man that I may be able to compete with in jujitsu on the street, if he wanted me to be dead, I probably would. There's
Sure.
only
Yeah.
so much you can do, but you got to make sure you put up a really good fight.
I like to think of it as like the 40-pound rule, right? Um, you could do pretty well with somebody that's around 40 pounds heavier than you in the gym. But after that point, like size really does matter.
Yeah. Yep. Which in jujitsu, it's like everyone wants to say that size doesn't matter, size doesn't matter. There's a point that it does because even someone small can feel really heavy. So imagine someone that is heavy feeling heavy.
Yeah, there's
It's
nothing
just not a good time.
like one of those big heavyweight like purple belts who really figures out how to control their weight and put pressure on, right? There's nothing you can do sometimes. It doesn't matter how good your escapes are, it doesn't matter how long you've been training them. They're just really heavy.
Right. And they can pick this one spot. It'll be like just on their elbow, and all of their weight is on you.
Mhm.
It's, I don't know what to do.
And that's jujitsu. That's kind of the sport always evolves and it's always changing. But jujitsu, I think, is something that is a real solid base jujitsu and wrestling that every fighter really needs to have. And going back through your record, right? You have an arm triangle win, you have a guillotine win, but then you have in your most recent win a KO TKO. So it seems like the wins that you're getting, you're primarily a submission specialist, some people would call you, with how you're beating people. Is that how you see yourself, or how do you see your fight style going into this pro debut?
That's the hard part because I don't have a background in anything. It's
Mhm.
not, I didn't grow up wrestling. I don't have this immense jujitsu background. I wasn't a striker for forever. So I have learned a bastardized form of everything. I've started with smashing it all together, and that's how my style has grown. So it's difficult to say if I'm a striker versus a grappler because I train all of it so frequently. And we make sure if one takes a jump forward, then we do the other to jump forward.
And I mean that is kind of, you're only a few years younger than me, but still your generation of fighter is, I think, the first fighter who doesn't have that, like, doesn't have to have that strict background in karate or grew up training jujitsu. Like, it is now a generation of MMA fighters. You walk into the gym and you start training each individual discipline, and then you put them together on your Fridays or your Sundays or whenever your MMA days are. And everything, like you said, grows incrementally together.
Yeah,
Now,
it's you're not stuck.
exactly. Yeah. And you don't have
But
to
the
spend.
good thing about having something is you can fall back on
Mhm.
that. People who have been wrestling forever, if they get knocked dropped with a punch, they'll instantly go to wrestling.
Mhm.
Where someone with MMA, you never know what you're going to get. Maybe they'll continue to strike. Maybe they'll wrestle.
And you never really know. And that's the beauty of MMA, right? Is you don't know until you get in there, and there's no no such thing as paper champions, because styles make matchups. So the better style and better fighter usually comes out on top, and that's just kind of the way that it goes.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of style, speaking of your upcoming fight, it's a pro debut, right? Which is, for some people, can be nerve wracking. It's always exciting. Training, depending on how you trained previously, might be the same, might be different. Talk to me about where you're at just mentally right now, going, into a pro rules fight. The slate is kind of clean with record, and you're just almost starting over.
I'm excited. I'm really excited about it. It was nice to be able to play with some new tools because, like you said, some people learn them from the beginning, but I didn't.
Mhm.
They were always coach would be like, "Don't forget, you can possibly do this in the future." So it's growing from there. But now sitting down and working with my coach on the elbows and the knees that can be really devastating it's been a lot of fun. And for me, the mental part of fighting is definitely the hardest, which I think is kind of why the dieting thing is huge for me because it's mental. That's what it is. The willpower to say no. And the mental part I've struggled with in the past, but I'm in a better mental space right now than I have been in a very long time.
And that is 90%, in my opinion, of fighting, is the mental side, right? You could be in the best shape of your life. You go out there and you're scared out of your mind, and you think, oh, this person across the cage is going to knock me out. They probably will.
Yeah.
So
It's the scary part.
do you do any kind of mental exercises, meditation, visualization? Some people do the boards, they're escaping my mind, a vision board. Do you do anything like that, like mental training?
So I've worked with a sports psychologist. I haven't started working with him yet this camp. Usually we do 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And I've done that for 2 of my fight camps. So he has given me a lot of different tools to use that really don't necessarily revolve around the fight world. They kind of revolve around the entire world, which if you're not in a good headspace in your everyday life, how can you possibly perform under such a high stress situation? So I've been using meditation more and more, and it has made a difference. In meditation, a lot of people think it's really cheesy, but it's not like you have to sit down and listen to calming music and all these things. Literally, I do a lot of mine when I shower after training because I have to unwind from training. I might as well take that time and do my mental training then.
Sure. And it does, like you said, it doesn't take long. It can really be done anywhere. And it can, 5 minutes can change your entire day. And I think as more people start to realize that, we're seeing a different side of fighters mentally. They're more relaxed, they're calmer, but then they can also flip that switch, right? And go into the cage and really put on a good performance.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Now, on the mental side of things, right? The camp is one thing, and then everything you have to go through there. How are you backstage night of the fight? what's your, warm up look like? Are you like headphones on, don't talk to me, just let me hit pads and get ready? Or are you the person that's, making jokes and talking to people and, just kind of hanging out before you go out?
Yeah, most of the time I'm pretty happy go
Mhm.
lucky. I just am doing whatever. But I've had dreams that I don't have time to warm up. It's happened to me twice. I've had two dreams in the past couple of weeks that I haven't had time to warm up, and then I walk out to the cage and the ref looks over and go, "Are you ready?" And I'm like, "I didn't have time to warm up, but I guess so." So warm up is, I don't know why that's been so huge on my mind, but warm up, usually we do a really vigorous warm up, and that way you get your heart rate really going, and you don't have to worry quite as much about that adrenaline dump happening too soon.
Sure. Yeah. If you can get the
So
adrenaline
yeah,
dump out in the back, right, then you're worlds ahead of, that person that may have it in the 30 seconds in the first round.
right. And I get really weird when I get anxious. I get really kooky.
Mhm.
So most of the time, I'm like walking around, like poking people. I don't know. It just comes out.
That's good. That's a good trait to have, right? Because you might also be helping someone else and not even knowing it.
Yeah, I'm very quirky. That's what everyone tells me. Got a lot of quirks.
It's good to know. Good to know. Now, I do want to talk about this fight specifically because not only is it your pro debut, right, but you are fighting essentially across the country. You're going from right Maine to Florida, which is not east to west coast as most people think across the country, but that's a really long distance to cover. So how is that going to play into just your preparation with, traveling while you're cutting weight and, all of those different things? Have you game planned or prepared for that part of it?
I traveled for one of my fights. I traveled only down to, I think we went to Connecticut. Excuse me. It was down. It's like just into Connecticut.
Mhm.
So I fought there, and we did a weight cut that way. And I didn't go down super early. I believe I left on Wednesday, maybe Tuesday, and we did that. So I have a little bit of experience traveling and cutting weight, not a lot. But we're leaving relatively early for the event
Mhm.
on the 27th. So hopefully we can get down there, get a little bit more situated, and then cut from there. And like I said, most of the time I'm really kooky.
Mhm.
So I end up making cookies the week of my weight cut almost every single time. It's the
That's
weirdest thing.
that's really funny you say that. I used to make cookies before the night before every weigh-in. I would make cookies.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, but you made them for you, right?
yeah, I would make them for me.
Yeah, I make them and I'm like, and I'll bring them into the gym and be like, will you please try one of these cookies and tell me if it's good?
Because you can't eat one.
It's really weird.
I never went that far, no, but maybe next time I'll have to make cookies and bring them in. Our coach would always get like pizzas or subs or just bring whatever into the gym, knowing that we were cutting weight and like give it out to other people that were not. I was like, that's very nice, thank you.
Yeah, that happened to us. Texas Roadhouse dropped off like a bag of rolls at the gym when me and one of the other fighters were working at the front desk. And we just look at each other and go, what is this? Do they know? Do they know we're doing this?
Um, yeah, that's, I mean, and it's torture, and that is, it is what it is. That's kind of what we signed up to do, right? When we sign up to cut weight. Now, after the fight, is there anything that you have that's like your signature meal? Like some people are like, I gotta have a burger, I gotta have a steak, I gotta have this or that. Is there anything that you crave that you want?
I crave so many things, and I actually make a list throughout all of camp of things that I want to make sure that I eat before next camp. And it was right, I think 2 days after we signed the fight, one of the parents at the gym has a younger boy, and she makes these French dip sandwiches,
Oh,
and they're so good. And I told her that after the fight, I'm coming over, and I really would like her to make those for me.
all right, so we're getting a French dip this time around. Good.
So that's the first thing on the list.
Awesome. Now, before I let you go, I know that you're, up there in Maine, and it's probably pretty cold right now. You probably have snow on the ground, but there's a lot of, I know a couple people up there who like to hunt, like to fish, like to do things outside. So, is there anything that you do outside of the cage? Do you have any hobbies? Do you, do anything that kind of, people would like to know about you?
I don't do really anything outside. I don't dislike the snow, but I dislike the cold. I can deal with it. Obviously, I do because I live in Maine, and
Sure.
I like that it's summer and winter and all that. But I don't do a whole bunch outside of training. I'm a little bit of like a nerd or a geek. I don't really know which way that it goes. Really into like the whole Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all that stuff. I have been forever, and it's just I kind of go and play off it.
So which Harry Potter house would you be from? Or would you get placed into, I should say?
It's the worst. I'm a Hufflepuff.
Yeah, that is the worst.
I know. I know.
And then so you did say you're a nerd. I just wanted to kind of comment, not even a question. Eddie Bravo all the time is saying that like people who train jujitsu, they're kind of nerd assassins, right? Because they're just these quirky, like you, people who really take to strangling people and breaking limbs. So if anything, if they ask for your fight style, maybe for this fight, you could tell them you're a nerd assassin.
I mean, that's a great style.
It
I
is.
think that should be the go-to.
All right, good. I hope you use that. We're looking forward to seeing you get this pro debut. I know you had one cancel before, so fingers crossed that this one goes through. Good luck in camp, and we'll be speaking with you. Coming up here soon. Hopefully, I can make it down to the fights in Tampa. We have a few sponsored athletes that are going to be down there, so I'm looking forward to possibly seeing your debut in person. No, until then, good luck. If you need anything, reach out to us, and we'll go from there.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, John.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.